Richter scales of the old-fashioned type. What does it mean? Why is it so?
G'day, Dr Karl here. Now, Australia is a nice place to live, but unfortunately, it is also the skin cancer capital of the entire known universe. Each year, there are more skin cancers diagnosed in Australia than all other cancers combined. It's UV or ultraviolet light that sets off skin cancers. Bummer! Luckily, sunscreen can block UV light. So, keeping it simple, if a little sunscreen is good, then surely more must be better? Not always. Yes, it seems that things are always complicated. And if you mix the wrong sunscreens, you could end up getting less protection from ultraviolet and more sun damage and more skin cancers. After all, more and more products, such as hair products, skin moisturisers and makeup already come with sunscreen added in. So, let me do this in 3 parts. First, ultraviolet light. Second, sunscreens. And finally, how mixing different types can be bad. So, ultraviolet light. The light that we can see with the eye ranges in colour from red, 700 nanometer wavelength, to violet, 400 nanometer wavelength. A nanometer is a billionth of a metre. Just before sunlight hits our atmosphere, UV makes up about 10% of it. But the atmosphere absorbs a fair whack of the UV, so by the time sunlight hits your skin at the local beach, the amount of UV has dropped down to about 3% of sunlight. But then it gets a little tricky. The UV band is broken down into UVA, which covers 400 down to 315 nanometers, and UVB, which is 315 down to 280 nanometers. Now, the atmosphere absorbs these differently, so what lands on your skin is about 95% UVA and about 5% UVB. First, the good news. UVB on your skin sets off the production of vitamin D. And you don't need a lot of UVB to make this happen. According to the World Health Organization, and I quote, 5 to 15 minutes of casual sun exposure of hand, face and arms 2 to 3 times a week during the summer months is enough to keep your vitamin D levels high, unquote. And UV is also helpful in a few conditions such as jaundice and psoriasis. But now the bad news. Both UVA and UVB will damage collagen in your skin and accelerate aging. Both UVA and UVB will damage the DNA in your skin, but in slightly different ways. And UVB can definitely cause skin cancer. So, here comes sunscreen, the great preventer. People since the ancient Egyptians have been making sunscreen from various plants for thousands of years. The first modern and much more effective sunscreen was invented in Australia in 1932 by the chemist H.A. Milton Blake. Now, there's a lot of different descriptions of the chemicals used in sunscreen, such as blocker or absorber or scatterer, and the different substances have a lot of overlap. So today, there is a trend to divide them into 2 main types of sunscreen. One type of sunscreen is based on zinc or titanium, and it's called a mineral sunscreen. The other type of sunscreen uses molecules such as avobenzone, octisalate and oxobenzone, and it's called a small molecule sunscreen. For both of them, the effectiveness at stopping UV from hitting your skin fades with time. So you have to reapply them after a few hours. Now, this gradual drop in effectiveness happens with the small molecule sunscreen for a whole bunch of reasons. And this reduction in effectiveness with time also happens with the mineral sunscreen, such as zinc oxide. Here, the ultraviolet reacts with zinc oxide, to make the zinc manufacture molecules called ROS, reactive oxidative species. No biggie, just reapply more zinc. But the real no-no is mixing zinc oxide with small molecule sunscreen. The ROSs given off by the zinc interact with the small molecule sunscreen, and then neither of them work well. So here's some numbers. Small molecule sunscreen by itself loses about 15% of its effectiveness after a few hours. But if you combine it with zinc oxide and wait the same few hours, the combination loses about 85% of its effectiveness, which is a lot worse than 15%. So yes, definitely slip, slop and slap. But do not double dip, or at least don't double mix sunscreens of different types, or you'll get more than just your fingers burnt.